Bitaxe is a small PCB that you can see actually here, and it's really tiny. You do have a second after this presentation to take a look on it if you're interested in that. It is literally just a PCB with an ASIC chip on it, a cooling heatsink, and a control device. That's it. It's the idea of taking these big machines that are loud, heavy, using a lot of energy, and squishing it into a small form factor to get it in an educational manner and into a manner where you can actually achieve something like an open source project. Because what I've showed you just a second before is the Bitaxe device. It actually, there are different varieties of it, so we do have different models, but we will get into that in just a second. But it is literally an open source project. And this project has been raised over the last couple of months and now over a year as well. And we do have a driving community, which is called OSMU, which stands for Open Source Miners United. We not only have the Bitaxe device itself, we also do have other derivatives and other form factors, usage of ASIC chips. So everything that you want to have and to understand about Bitcoin mining is there in this community. And from this community, we do have new products that are being released now and then. We have founded ourselves in March last year, and yeah, we are just this community that is trying to bring back the state of mining to the people. Because Bitcoin was invented as an open source project, but mining these days, I mean, who of you actually do know how mining works if you're not in this industry? Probably nobody. And this is one of the biggest issues that we do see with it. And that's the reason why we do have created something like the Bitaxe project, to bring back the knowledge and the transparency to the miners that actually do care about the network and how everything works. Let me show you a couple devices that we do have. Obviously, here you do see the Bitaxe device itself. In the middle is the Nerd Miner. Some of you might have seen this before. It is an interesting device that you can use for educational purposes to grasp a little bit of how mining works. And next to it, on the top right-hand side, we do have the QX, which is basically the design of the Bitaxe times 4. So we do have 4 ASIC chips. You need to control it with a separate device, which is a little bit different compared to the Bitaxe, because the Bitaxe device is a standalone device. You can just plug it in, fire it up, connect it to Wi-Fi, and there you go. You stop mining. And if you're interested in it, obviously you can go over to our websites and to our GitHub repositories, take a look on everything that you do see there, try to understand the code and the hardware, because everything that we do is open source. Nothing is restricted. The only restriction that we do have is our license. But here's the catch. It's an open source license. You can do whatever you want. The only thing that we are actually asking for, if you change anything, make it open source in a manner that everybody should apply to. And we see plenty of companies these days trying to be copycats and not doing that. So also, we have seen a couple of people sharing their interest in shitcoins, and unfortunately, I'm not doing that, and nobody of the developers in this community are interested in that. So you won't see any of these shit tokens being solo mineable by us, but maybe there is someone who is trying to do it. Who knows? But we are not. We are focused on Bitcoin only, and one of the most interesting devices is the Hex to the top right downside there, which does utilize 6 ASIC chips. Unfortunately, I only have the small Bitaxe device currently today with me here, but you get the point. What we're trying to achieve here is create a platform that everybody can use, understand, and get into the hardware and software part of it in order to multiply this by a factor, whatever your imagination is. We have already a couple of teams working on bigger hashboards from the form factor size of an S9 to an S19. So open source mining is not only restricted to home mining, but actually can go in the industrial way. The biggest issue that you will face with it is obviously the price. And price for these devices is something that you might find a little bit intriguing to yourself, because you're trying to get the best buck for what you're getting from the hash rate. But that's not the open source ethos that we are trying to achieve with it. What we are trying to achieve here is bring the knowledge to the people that have interest in it, and actually get it also to the people that like to understand, tinker a little bit around, and make something new that never has been there before. I have a fun quote here with me as well. I just put this into the pre-search AI because I was lazy. So I talked about the nerd miner, this little ESP32 that you can use on your desk to take a look on the Bitcoin price or the current block height or whatever you're interested in. And it can also mine at roughly 70 kilohashes, which is not that much, and the likelihood of finding a block is close to zero, but there is a chance. But I've quickly compared this with the Bitaxe Ultra, which utilizes the BM1366 chip, which is the chip of the S19XP ASIC miner from Bitmain. And you can see we achieve a multiplier of 8.5 million compared to this small device, which is quite funny, because an ASIC chip these days is so powerful, it is really hard to grasp what's going on there. These chips are proprietarily designed, but we managed to reverse engineer how the functionality with them works. By no means are we anywhere close to understand the architecture of the chip, but we're close, and we actually achieved it to understand which pin you need to use and which commands you need to send over, as well as in which manner you need to do that, which is a really important part of getting this up and rolling and creating something new, like a new control board that you can use and actually control your device in the way you like. I've talked about a little bit why open source, but let me dive into this a little bit more, because our focus in this community and with the Bitaxe project is not only to present you a nice device that you can put on your desk and it is Wi-Fi proof and everybody loves it and it looks just tiny and lovely, but we actually want to get you involved in it, because this is what a community like Bitcoin is driving from. Imagine nobody would have interest in Bitcoin. Where would we be today? Nowhere. Nobody of us would have cared about it. And there are a couple of people that actually cared about Bitcoin and created it, improved it, made some BIPs for it, Bitcoin improvement proposals. And the same way applies to everything around mining. Mining these days seems to be an unimportant factor that nobody's actually interested in. But I'm going to tell you why the heck is that the case? If you're going to any sort of a conference, you usually do see something like, all right, we have a new wallet, we have a new node design, Bitcoin Knots is out there, Bitcoin Core, nobody likes this anymore. Why is that the case? Why is nobody actually talking about mining? The only thing that you do see about mining are these companies that are trying to sell you something, which is inappropriate in our perspective. And that's the reason why we try to go to conferences like this and give you the idea and the actual understanding of why open source in this manner cares and is important, because if nobody would care, Bitcoin would not exist today. Let's talk a little bit about the evolvement of the Bitaxe device. What you do see here is a timeline of actual creations of the Bitaxe device. Funny enough, Bitaxe was never intended to be named Bitaxe. The first version, which you can see here, was named Dayminer. The original idea of the instigator, who is named Skot, he is from the US and he is an engineer by training, was to create a device that you can use, hook up to a solar panel and just mine during the day, hence the name Dayminer. The idea quickly started from there, and he opened up a couple of topics on Bitcoin Talk, but there was not really that much interest, and he had trouble with actually getting the ASIC chip to work. In the first version, he tried to use the ASIC chip from the S9 miner, but it failed. On the second derivative, the Dayminer X3, he tried the same part, failed again. With the next version, which was hence their name, the first version of the Bitaxe, was in May 22, was getting closer to the project and where it should be originated from, but it was also not working. What the difference between these two versions and the next version was, and why it was then named Bitaxe, is actually that he tried to change the ASIC chip that he's utilizing, and that he's trying to use a different approach of getting there. It's a little bit funny. All of these devices should have worked. The only reason why they didn't was there was a millimeter offset for the pins. So ASIC chips are really, really tiny, and they have, depending on the chip, between 28 to 50 different pins underneath them. Imagine sitting there with a millimeter and trying to get it to perfectly align. It's pretty hard, and that's the reason why the first couple of iterations actually failed. In June, there was another version with a newer chip called Bitaxe V2, but this also didn't work. On October 22, he had a different mindset. Instead of actually having this prototype-ish looking like board, why not utilize something that you can use, plug in an ESP32 development board, and try to actually attach an ASIC chip there that is known to be working. And this was the first time that he actually used the S17 chip. So what you do see with all these improvements and with the changes that we do see here is we utilize Bitmain's ASIC chips. And I try to quickly explain this as well, that we have not created an ASIC chip. We just rely on what is currently there, but what we're trying to achieve is make it public to the people that actually do care. So this way, we will not be on the good price-wise perspective, but we actually can achieve that people understand these chips, not on the architecture structure, but on the way how these functions and what happens with them. The first actual working Bitaxe was on January 23, which was the Bitaxe Max. It was the first version that actually worked with the S17 chip, which is called the BM1397. It achieved around 200 to 325 gigahashes at a power draw of roughly 12 to 13 watts, which is not that bad. And we are still in this form factor of a small device, which you should probably not use for pool mining because the thresholds are way too high to actually achieve the payout threshold. But solo mining is really interesting. And from there on, everything that you do see these days are improvements. We have today around 15 different derivatives of the Bitaxe or improved versions of it. We try to improve it in a manner of getting it better in form of producing it, because we do have a couple of producers over the world. And we also try to improve it on the hash rate and the performance that we do get. And funny and interesting fact about it is that the next version after the Bitaxe Max was the Bitaxe Ultra, which utilizes the BM1366 chip, which is from the S19 XP miner. And we need to care about the fact that we are not using a big machine, but we're using just one ASIC chip. And Antminer, or Bitmain itself, was saying that they do achieve an efficiency of roughly 25 joules per terahash. We managed to get it down to 19 to 20 joules per terahash. I'm not saying that we have improved the chips. I'm just saying it's interesting that a singular chip performs way better than a variety of more of these chips, which is interesting to think about and develop upon of that. I also brought to you a couple of pictures from our community just to give you a little bit of an inspiration what's going on there. Obviously, you do see plenty of people playing around with it, and plenty of people are actually trying stupid stuff with it, which is fantastic. I mean, we are all here to fuck around and find out, I'd say. But yeah, Bitaxe is not only this small device that you can put in on your desk and have it sitting there. You can increase it, you can improve it, and you can actually design your own one if you wish to. And this is what I hopefully try to emphasize with this picture, that people actually can do whatever they want with it. One of the biggest factors about our community and the Bitaxe project is our vision. And the vision is actually really, really simple. We need to enable small home miners that just don't care. I mean, what I'm trying to say here, imagine your government in 10 years tries to block Bitcoin mining, says it's bad, and you're no longer allowed to. Obviously, what you will see instantly are these big corporations fail and just get depleted. But with home miners, no way the federal government will actually do anything around that. They can't. They can't come home to you and actually show you, all right, you're no longer allowed to do that. No, we can enable everybody, and we can enable them to do that no matter what time it is and where they are. And this is the true decentralized factor that we're trying to applicate here to this. Because instead of having these big mining corporations, we have plenty of people. And even these days, we have created our own fully open source Bitcoin pool called Public Pool. And this one does run at a 0% fees, as well as being on a centralized farm, but it enables all these decentralized miners. And the matter of fact is, if you don't like that, just spin up your own version of it. It is done in 2 clicks on an Umbrel node. It doesn't take any knowledge. So what we're trying to do here is present to you all these factors, make it better and greater, and also give you the ability, if you don't have actually the time or the understanding to grasp everything, that you can do it no matter what. This is a funny picture, and I'm sorry for the grayish pictures there, but these pictures are from our Discord server. And maybe some of you are actually not into Discord. It's basically a platform, you can say like Facebook, where you share messages, pictures and stuff like this. But this is our main platform that we do use to interact with each other. Obviously, everything that we do have and that we have created, from the hardware to the software, is available on GitHub, but also on our Discord server. And many of these people that you do see here, myself included, and there, are not showing their faces. I mean, I'm going out there, I'm trying to express Bitaxe and what this community means to everybody, because I think there's a need for it. But you don't need to know the people. And that's also the beauty about Bitcoin. You don't need to know who the developer behind it is, because you don't care. The decentralized network is the most important part about it, and OPSEC is also important for us. Our portfolio about the Bitaxe, if you can call it like that, is somewhat a little bit interesting. We are not only trying to, as I said, create this board and just ship it out to the people, because the matter of fact is we are not a company. We are not a foundation or anything else. We are just a couple of nerds sitting on our computer creating, for whatever reason, the very first, world's first open source Bitcoin miner. And we don't need a corporation behind us, because what we're trying to achieve here is to truly live the decentralized factor. I have worked with plenty of people on software updates, bug fixes, that I've never seen in my life. I've never talked to them. Why do I need to do that? And this is really important, I believe, that you can have a portfolio of people that you don't know that are working on an entire goal of bringing back the decentralized mining factor to Bitcoin and the open source factor. And to conclude everything, and if you wish, you can obviously ask me questions after that, I'd like to quickly share with you a couple of informations about us. We do have we have a website where you can actually find everything around Bitaxe, which is called bitaxe.org, or on the website opensourceminers.org, as well as an email address that we do have there. And if you're interested more in what I'm doing, I also do have a QR code down there. Yeah, thank you for having me. All right, yeah?
A couple of questions. Let's say I have a 70 square meter apartment and I want to heat it using the Bitaxe. Can I get a reasonable rebate on my heating cost, let's say 20–30%?
One of the biggest issues with creating something that is open source is you can never achieve the cost perspective that Bitmain can. For example, Bitmain can produce these chips for less than $1, but obviously they are selling them for $20 to us. So from a cost perspective, I need to say no. Using something that's open source is probably not the cost-effective way, but that's not what we are trying to achieve. We're just trying to achieve here the factor of having this knowledge for the people. Heating your apartment is probably a nice idea, but currently, we have the Bitaxe, we have bigger derivatives of it with more chips, which can consume up to 300 watts. I believe the biggest one that we currently do have is the naming scheme is really weird. It's the Nerd Oct X Plus. It does features up to 8 or 16 chips, depending on which model you do use, and it consumes between 100 to 200 watts. So it's probably a nice heater for your hands. It already exists. Most of the projects that we do have are only available on GitHub, and nobody is actually producing them. We have a couple of corporations that we're trying to talk to, and a couple of manufacturers that we're trying to get into to have more of them produced, but it's hard because it's a niche.
So what we're up against is basically the price of the chips.
The price of the chips is probably the most important part. People usually care about it. That's one of the biggest issues. I myself, I do have a company that I'm trying to use to actually manufacture and develop new devices. And one of the biggest things that I'm trying to achieve is to use the S9 miner and upgrade it with new chips. But if you're taking a look on a hashboard, a single layer hashboard can just cost you for the chips alone up to $300, which is just insane. But somebody needs to do it.
I think you've answered my question very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Question, speaking of decentralization, did you calculate just for fun how many Bitaxe would it take to make the same hash rate?
Oh, that's probably a nice thing. So to get the same hash rate, I've never done this calculation. But to give you a look out into some other perspective is, if you would have 1 million of these Bitaxe devices, no matter which derivative you use, one Bitaxe approximately every 6 days would find a block. And we have seen recently the first Bitaxe block, probably the first Bitaxe block. You can't really, I'm sorry, you can't really say that Bitaxe was the one who found the block, but it's really obvious if you take a look on the hash rate. Okay, thank you. I need to go.